Welcome to Sacred Realms. It's a great day in Hyrule, y'all. Welcome to Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Lyndon Willoughby, and I am joined back in person this week by my co-host, Matt Willoughby. I really do prefer doing this way and not like the three-way recording remote situation we had for last week's episode. Not my favorite, Matt.
No, it's kind of sucks. Yeah, kind of sucks.
You lose a certain something in the recording of an episode like that.
You do, and sometimes your audio file gets split into 9 different subtracks for no reason whatsoever, which is not fun for anyone.
Primarily not fun for me. I just want to say I'm proud of myself for managing to cobble that together into like a coherent episode experience. Some real audio forensics were required to pull that one off. So,
well, you did great.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Of course, it is another 3-person episode tonight. Excited, as always, to welcome back onto the show everyone's favorite constable, law enforcement individual. You're not actually a constable, but like no. I like to think of him as like Constable Odo.
Oh, yes.
9.
I'm okay with that comparison.
Yeah, I love that.
Most constables are like kind of police officers.
How's your dismissive gruff? Like, huh? Like, do you have a good one of those?
I'm about 15 years shy of that gruff.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Fair enough.
Cool. Do you have like a nemesis on the job that you are kind of frenemies with, where you can just kind of be like, Quark? You know? No?
I did in Amarillo. Not so much here.
Oh, was that Trip C?
Yeah, my boy Trip C.
Gotcha.
Trip C.
How's he doing? Is he still up the river?
Prison.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Fair.
It happens to the best of them.
It happens primarily to Trip C.
Don't deal or smoke drugs, kids.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm fantastic. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here. It's we're out in the garage tonight, and you know what? Maybe it's just because we are coming off a string of like truly inhospitable weather in North Texas, but it feels darn good out here tonight.
Downright balmy right now.
Pleasant beyond belief.
50 degrees, man, any day.
Yeah.
We're all quite comfortable having a nice stogie and drinking some whiskey and talking Zelda. I think this is about as good as it gets.
This is the
in
first,
January.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first stogie I've had since New Year's Eve.
Actually, that is accurate. Yeah,
because we didn't smoke it all on the mountain, and I haven't had one since we got back.
That's the thing about those resort towns is they're all no smoking everywhere except for like the roundabouts, which are technically city property.
Which I do respect, but at the same time, you know,
it's very
like,
inconvenient.
It's a vacation town. Give us a smoking lounge, right? Like someplace with wood paneling and cushy couches and stuff. That's what I'm looking.
And like light jazz music in the background.
Exactly. I asked a hotel employee up there one time if they had a designated area like that. I was like, is there a smoke shop in town, like a nice classy place? And the best they could do for me is, well, if you walk just off the property and stand in the middle of the roundabout, you're able to smoke there. I was like, well, that sounds like the mood I'm looking for.
That doesn't track for me because you see any movie with a ski lodge, I feel like it always has a fancy smoking room,
right?
It feel like it should.
So
yes.
Did you guys go one step not bougie enough on your trip?
I guess so. We must have not gone bougie enough.
Okay.
That must be the problem.
Like when you go to the Overlook, that's going to have a smoking section.
I mean, the whole hotel was smoking at that point in time because smoking was just generally
at the Overlook. You've got a smoking section, and you have the
haunted smoking section.
You have the departed spirit of an evil person there to light the cigar for you.
Man, I feel like that would be a fun smoking conversation, though. Like, hey, man.
So, how'd you die? You just want to tell me that story?
As he has no head and smoke's just coming out of his neck hole.
So what happened there, bud?
So were you a red rum situation or other? None of that happened, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say, none of that happened.
Well, now I'm disappointed.
We had a good trip. I feel like I'm dogging this trip unnecessarily here.
No, it was a fantastic trip. Yeah. Really phenomenal.
Yeah. But more than that, just happy to get to see you again because it's been 2.5 weeks since I've seen The Detective. And
yeah, we had New Year's and then y'all promptly got out of Dodge.
We did.
And haven't seen you since, and it's been sad. There's been a detective heart-shaped hole in my heart.
Well, I've been here waiting for you, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I know that in our absence, in the time that we have not been able to spend together, you have been catching up on The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. And I actually believe for a fair amount of time, you were ahead of us. You kind of seemed like you trucked ahead for a bit there.
So that might be a mislead. I actually didn't start this game until around New Year's. So roughly 2 weeks ago when we had the party.
Okay. All right.
Either right before that or right after is when I started. And I was kind of on the fence about, am I going to play catch up on this? Because I got Jedi Survivor for Christmas.
Oh, good game.
Yeah, I've been lightsaber deep in that game ever since. And so it's been a really good time, and I've enjoyed it, but I've had to split my time between this and Minish. And it's not time wasted. I've enjoyed Minish quite a bit.
And I also got to believe, I mean, this is not one of the Zelda games that I think would be a real hassle to get caught up on.
Oh, no. This is one of those perfect, knock it out in like 30-minute increments in bed each night is really doable. Not so with some of the games we played recently. So I enjoy this return to form.
Also known as Twilight Princess.
Oh, yes. And I can play this one on the Switch, which is a huge upgrade for me.
Massive. Yep.
So, yeah, I've had a good time touching up.
Awesome. So just to catch up with your personal history on this game real quick, Mike, you have not played Minish Cap before. Is that correct?
That is correct. So this is my first time to play Minish Cap. I've heard you guys talk about it favorably before, but never experienced it. And I'm honestly surprised I've never played it before. It came out at a time where I may have been able to have played this game. But I'm having a fantastic time playing it for the first time.
Nice. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I mean, is there anything that you want to call out, just general observations about the game before we dive into talking specifically about this episode's worth of stuff? I mean, just like, you know, your thoughts about the structure of the game, the story that it's telling, and mechanics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so I will admit and apologize that I've not kept up with the podcast the last couple of weeks.
That's
so
okay.
I think I listened to the first episode of Minish Cap, then it kind of got crazy with Actual Job, as we discussed earlier.
It do that.
So I have had a good time playing this game. It feels like a very classic Zelda to me, just in format. I mean, it's kind of the classic scenario and setup, different villain. I really thought that the I guess you would call it almost a gimmick for this game of the shrinking and having the kind of mini world within a world is a really cool and imaginative setup.
Yeah.
At first I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this the very first time. And then after I see how they execute it with like the little mini worlds where you see the giant acorns, I'm like, this feels pretty cool. And then you see the puzzles and have to figure out how you're going to solve them later in the game as you go. So I've really enjoyed that aspect. I feel like this game has had me beat my head against the wall, maybe more than most of the other games we've played.
Really?
I've run into several times. So I don't generally look up anything online. I like to try and do it all just as I would have done as a kiddo, playing through it and trying my best. But there's been several times where I have hit my head against the wall for way too long on how to solve a puzzle, only to find out that I can't solve that now, even though it looks like maybe you should be able to, or just like little things throughout dungeons in the overworld that are not well explained. Not a lot of telegraphing. Like in some games, you kind of get a clue early, like, hey, if you come across this puzzle, here's how you should handle this. And then you kind of expand on that as you go. I feel like some of these puzzles have been straight up like, we're just going to throw a thing at you and see if you can figure it out, which has left me probably 3 or 4 times sitting there for 20, 30 minutes, just doing the same thing over and over and feeling like an idiot. But despite that, I've enjoyed it, and I do enjoy a little bit of difficulty. So overall, very positive, good dungeons, fun overworld. I like the populace. The kinstone thing threw me for a loop because I didn't know how to trade kinstones or that it was even remotely important.
Give you that left bumper, baby.
Yeah, left bumper, baby. Man, they don't really tell you how important it's going to be. They're like, oh yeah, and Mr. Was it Wiggly Piggly Man or?
We'll go with Wiggly Piggly.
Yeah,
Man.
it's like Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's it. Yeah.
The Hurdy-Gurdy Man tells you, hey, there's some weird stones you can like match up with people, like a weird dating sim and have fun. And I'm like, I'm not going to do any of that. Lo and behold, I'm doing a lot of that.
That's like the main mechanic of the whole game.
Oh yeah, well, joke's on me. So I've been figuring that out.
It's better living via fusion.
Yeah. And then I didn't know you could trade with people more than once. So I found out one time that you can do that. And now I'm having to like go back and find all these dang Minish folks and their little cornholes and mushrooms and retrade.
So am I the only one who's always sitting around wondering whether some of these Kinstone fusion-based double entendres were intentional? Like,
100% they were.
You think so? Because, I mean, that's not the kind of thing like, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge humor is not something Zelda does a lot, but this was also developed by Capcom and not Nintendo.
Who does wink, wink, nudge, nudge humor?
Yeah, Capcom does.
Like every now and again, I'll walk up to somebody and be like, oh, I want to fuse Kinstones with this person. And they'll look me straight in the face and be like, I hear it hurts if you don't do it right.
That's awesome.
No.
Well, there's so many too, like without trying to make this Zelda After Dark, there's been a few times where just for fun, I've made like, you know, I'll read the text in a sultry voice, like, ooh, I hope it fits. And you do that, and then immediately...
Something good will happen if they fit together.
Oh, I hope they fit just right. And you're like, oh, God. So that's been fun. So, no, overall, very positive. I've enjoyed the mechanics. I've enjoyed the story. I think that the villain... I don't even know why I'm blanking on his name right now. Vati. I think he's a pretty interesting and kind of relatable villain. And I felt very on the fence about your hat at the beginning. And I'm like, oh, that looks so goofy. And I don't know if I like having bird hat on my head.
Bird hat's dope.
But a bird hat's super dope, right?
Yeah, I love bird hat.
So as I quickly found out that I have an affinity for bird hat. So no, I have very few complaints so far about this game.
Nice. Glad to hear it. I think Matt and I, it's been a story of nothing but positive impressions on Minish Cap for us the entire way through. And that's going to continue this week for sure. What's that going to mean for us in the rank and recap, which we're going to welcome you back for in a week and a half's time? Who knows? Yeah. We will definitely see. I think
top 3
odds are definitely good that it's going to end up higher than the last game that we played. So yeah,
odds are good. Yes.
But is this game not such a breath of fresh Zelda air in a post Twilight Princess season?
Yeah, it's both a breath of fresh air and a kind of a nostalgic return, because I feel like Twilight Princess tried to do a lot of things and be a lot of things, and this is just a very classic format. Classic setups. I mean, a few new things thrown in, obviously, but it feels very Zelda, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And we totally 100% agree. So, and some of those big classic Zelda moments, again, going to be talking about them in the dungeon map this week. I have a few notes that I took down, which is, uncommon for me, but it felt appropriate to do.
You know how to write?
I'm a literate man. Yeah. I mean, I know I spend most of my time communicating via art and, by signs and symbols, but
most of his notes are in pictograph format.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am able to. I do not communicate only in metaphor.
Hieroglyphs? Hieroglyphs, Lyndon. Hieroglyphs.
No, in metaphor. Link, when he fused the elements. Yeah.
Lyndon, when he tried to write.
Oh. On that somewhat sad and misleading note, I'm going to take us into the main body of the episode. If you didn't know, Sacred Realms is a weekly re-examination of The Legend of Zelda, one little slice at a time. Sacred Realms drops every Wednesday and is available on all major podcast networks. Every week, we play a new section of a Zelda game. Then we sit down here to talk and to drop our hot takes. If that sounds fun to you, please head over to Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to leave us a review. We see if we have a new one, Matt.
We don't.
5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, and they have a chance to get a shout out here on the show. If you want more Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod to get access to our Discord channel, listener mail, vote on what game we play next, and so much more. That voting thing, we're going to be doing that again real soon. Matt and I were having a conversation this morning about what the exact contents of that poll are going to be, and that's probably going to be going up. You know what? Honestly, it might even be up by the time this episode airs.
So go vote.
Yeah. Woohoo. And yeah, so we're getting down to the wire. There's going to be a few interesting things in the voting lineup for the remainder of like from now until Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, we've already decided Ocarina of Time Redux season is going to be a thing that happens.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, obviously we still have Spirit Tracks to look forward to.
Yay.
Choo-choo.
And then we have a little special surprise as well.
Indeed.
That we're going to be thrown in. So anyway, lots of fun stuff to look forward to. Yeah. And additionally, just a note for all of you Big Gorn Sword patrons who have been so patient about the trading card situation. If you've been keeping up in the Discord and on the Patreon, you know the trading card catch-up is complete. All cards from July through December are now done. They're ordered. They're going in the mail.
Bro, you're backlogged from July?
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, it's been a nightmare to try to remind him about it for the last 6 months.
Do you even art, bro?
I do. Actually, I want to show you the way some of these turned out later.
They look really good, but 6 months.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But the nice thing is they all get mailed together in one convenient package now. So you got to put them in like a cool little package like Pokemon trading cards come. Oh, we'll see if we can do that. That's nothing but good news for you.
No, it's bad news for me because there's a lot of people. I have to splice out who gets what months of cards.
Oh.
It actually is kind of a nightmare.
Oh, well, I respect your service. Thank you very much. I love you. Ass. Everyone give a small round of applause for our business manager and fulfillment officer, Matt.
Fulfillment officer. Yeah. No, I will say that they're probably going to be worth the wait. I usually find their cards pretty dope, and they're all on my desk at work, so very exciting.
I was possessed by a benevolent art god when I was doing the Midna card. I just wanted
to seriously, that one was excellent.
Anyway.
And the Hero Shade one is also fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Did you make a Crossroads deal? For cards?
What? I don't know that reference.
Demon Crossroads deal.
Crossroad Demons, sell your soul for a thing. That's a Crossroad Demon. Like
I've never heard this reference.
Dude, it's like Ghost Rider. Yeah,
sells his soul. You get like 10 years after the deal, and like you get like for you do good art for 10 years, then they take you.
Like a Faustian bargain?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Bro, watch Supernatural.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Mike gets it.
Now I understand where the gap is in my knowledge. Thank you for helping me identify that a little bit more clearly. Additionally, one of the benefits that Master Sword patrons and above get is that we read their names every week here on the show. Those legendary individuals are Brandon, Shrikewill, Joseph, Nintendo, Adam, Sakura Sky, Art, Jeremy, Dante, 2, Tom, Andy, Billy, Connor, Rachel, Shepherd Street, Matthew, Chris, Daniel, Fallout 907, Kelso, Chris, Tiffany the Star, Patrice, Stephanie, Darknuck, Il Maestro himself, Brian, George, Mike, Dylan, Lennon, Kolku, Rowan, Josh, Nick, Dante1, Gep, Brittany, Davey, Haru, The Mighty, Derek, Albert, Mark, Andy, Cameron, Ben, Daniel, Nick D _TV, Hyrule Interviews, aka Max Nichols, Garrett, and Drew. These are the most legendary of individuals, and I would chill out for a weekend in a castle built on top of the clouds with them any day of the week. I guess for several days of the week. It's a weekend. All right. Before we get into the Sacred Realms rundown, we have one more bit of business, and that is our favorite bit. It's Whiskey Bit.
Whiskey Bit.
What are we drinking for Whiskey Bit tonight, Matt?
We are drinking batch number 1 of Breckenridge Distillery's Two Clans whiskey. This is a whiskey that I picked up when I was on my little foyer, or not foyer. What is the what's the word I'm looking for?
You were not on a foyer.
I was not on a foyer. I was in a foyer. I was in a foyer at some point.
Did you make a sojourn to a foyer?
Sojourn. Thank you. Sojourn. I was on my sojourn to Colorado with Jackson this past summer. We went to Breckenridge Distillery, and they the owner of Breckenridge loves Scotch, specifically Speyside style Scotches, and so he got it in his mind to go and create a whiskey in the Speyside style in a single pot still. And he took that after he did it a couple times and made it good. He took that and blended it with his favorite Speyside Scotch, which is undisclosed. He didn't say what it is on the label, and that is what we have. We have a blend of a Breckenridge, Colorado Speyside style whiskey blended with a Speyside whiskey single malt to create the Two Clans whiskey. So there you go.
Cheers.
Very delicious.
Cheers, boys.
Who are the two clans? The mystery lives on.
You know, I will say that when I first saw that bottle, I thought it said 2 clams, and I was very confused.
No, there are no clams. Clams are not in the process.
Yeah, I don't usually drink Scotch whiskey with clams either.
No, that sounds really bad.
this is
What a pairing.
This is an American whiskey distilled in clam brined oak barrels.
Oh, God, that sounds so bad.
Cody Days over here like Americans.
Hey, he's got no room to talk. Cody told me what Vegemite is for the first time the other day.
Oh, yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, turns out. So, anywho, now is it clam brined oak barrels gross? I don't know.
I don't know if anything is that gross.
Okay, cool. Probably not. You gotta hope not.
Well, I mean, like it's the equivalent, it's a penal colony, so it's equivalent. They grew up on toilet wine and commissary food, right? So, love you, Cody.
I'm gonna need some clarification from Cody on Australia's toilet wine.
Well, it's called Barefoot, Lyndon, and whatever the one with the kangaroo on it is.
Yeah.
What is that? The wine that has the kangaroo on it. It's really crappy, like $5.
I thought that was that's not Barefoot. Barefoot has the
Barefoot has a foot on it.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about because I bought that when I was pouring in college. But
Exactly.
kangaroo wine.
I'm literally Googling kangaroo wine.
I do wonder, given that the Twilight Realm is the Australia of Hyrule.
Yellowtail.
I wonder.
Yellowtail.
There it is. I wonder how the Twilight Realm's Vegemite and toilet wine is.
It's probably real. I don't know. I'm thinking
Musky
grainy.
is
I'm thinking
kinda-
grainy for some reason.
Ew.
I don't
Dark.
know. Yeah.
Grainy isn't like a quality that I like in basically anything that I ingest.
Yeah, nothing. Not a thing. No.
Okay. All right. This has been a fun aside. But now it's time for the Sacred Realms Rundown. That is, of course, a 6-part analysis of what we played this week and the feelings that it made us feel. Today, we are covering the Minish Cap, Chapter 5. Part 1 of the Sacred Realms Rundown is, as always, the plot recap, this week read by Matt. Take it away, Matt.
We leave the Temple of Droplets with our third element in hand, the last of the elements that we have an easy path to. The final element, that of air, resides somewhere with the missing Wind Tribe, and none who are living know where they are. As we regrow to our normal size back in Lake Hylia, after Eslo stops complaining about how cold the temple was, the air around us grows strangely dark. The specter of a past king of Hyrule appears before us, floating above the entrance to the Temple of Droplets. He tells us his name is King Gustav, and that he was the king of Hyrule countless ages ago. He tells us to stand before him, and only then will the path be open to us. With his ghostly powers, he marks a spot on our map, a spot just east of Mount Crenel and north of the Trilby Highlands. Eslo encourages us to first visit the Sanctuary of Elements and infuse our sword, but then we will head for this mystery spot post-haste. Using the Ocarina of Winds, we head back to Castletown and spend some time with the villagers there, trading kinstones and helping some folks out. We even fuse kinstones with a mysterious stranger from a distant land, which opens a portal to a strange building with many rooms and oddly dressed humans around. In this house, we find an old man who is bedridden and haunted by a malevolent spirit. We use the gust jar to suck up the spirit, ridding the man of his affliction and earning some goodwill with the folks in the building. Once back in Hyrule, we head to the Elemental Sanctuary, but find the way blocked by soldiers who claim that they have orders from the king to keep everyone out of the castle. Even when we explain that we are acting on the king's orders to help Zelda, they refuse to let us pass. With a horrible feeling about what is going on in the castle, we explore around the gardens to try to find a way into the basement level without the guards' knowledge. Luckily, the western gardens have a secret entrance that allows us to access the basement, and after carefully avoiding the guards, we are able to access the Elemental Sanctuary and infuse the sword with the element of water. We are now able to split ourselves into 3 copies instead of 2, and the sword has gained even more power. With the upgraded blade in hand, we start making our way to the spot on the map that King Gustav's ghost indicated for us. It turns out that the king marked the royal graveyard that is sequestered near Mount Crenel, called the Royal Valley. The graveyard is spooky in the extreme, haunted by roaming ghosts and suffused with thick darkness that even our new lantern only partially dispels. The ghosts that roam the area try to envelop us, and the nasty crows dive bomb us as soon as we enter their line of sight. But we press on further into the valley. After following some signs that help us navigate the confusing pathways in the woods, we find ourselves blocked from the graveyard by a locked fence. We enter the small hut next to the fence and find the gravekeeper Dampe, who agrees to let us into the royal graveyard after we explain that the ghost of King Gustav brought us here. He gives us the graveyard key, but unfortunately we are mugged by a couple of crows as soon as we step foot out of Dampe's hut. We then have to track down the thieving birds and use the Pegasus boots to shake loose the stolen key from their nest. Once we recover the key, Dampe opens up the graveyard for us, and we start our hunt for the solution to Gustav's riddle. We find a couple rows of graves, and among them a friendly ghost who says he's the brother of the ghost that lives in town. But at the very back of the graveyard is a grand headstone with the symbol of the royal family upon it. When we approach it, nothing happens. We notice that there are 3 switches in the ground near the headstone, so we look for duplication pads that would allow us to activate them simultaneously. Once we successfully activate the switches, the grave moves out of the way to reveal a staircase leading into the royal crypt. While the crypt may be royal, Eslo correctly points out that all crypts are creepy, no matter whose they are. The first room is haunted by 2 mummified Gibdos, but with the help of our lantern we're able to burn away their protective wrappings and make short work of the Stalfos inside. With the key that one of them dropped, we head further into the crypt and start making our way through the various puzzles and traps we find there. Mostly this consists of replicating ourselves with the power of the sword in order to create keys, as well as defeating a few more Gibdos. Once we reach the end of the crypt, we find the specter of King Gustav once more. In order to help Zelda, his descendant, he gives us a piece of a golden kinstone and tells us to find the source of the flow. Only then will our path be open. With this cryptic and currently unhelpful riddle in our minds and half of a golden kinstone in hand, we leave the graveyard to begin our search for this source. We decide to start our search at Lake Hylia, but quickly realize that the water is flowing into the area from further north. So we redirect towards the distant Vale Falls that are east of Hyrule Castle. The Rocky Mountains are home to the largest waterfall in Hyrule, with the torrential ribbon of water flowing endlessly from high above. We approach the base of the falls and find an ancient stone door, which, like the statues in the Castor Wilds, confuse kinstones. We approach and offer up the kinstone that Gustav gave us, and the ancient stone doors open up before us, revealing a pathway further into the falls. We immediately dive in and begin to climb the rocky edifice towards the top. The falls are infested with enemies, but we have no trouble reaching the top to find the head of a colossal Goron and a giant cyclone. The Goron doesn't seem interested in speaking with us at the moment, so we take a leap of faith and jump into the cyclone, which propels us terrifyingly high into the air. As we continue high into the sky, we eventually land on the clouds above Hyrule and discover to our utter shock that we can walk upon them as though they were solid land. Not only that, but there are other people up here. We find 2 women with red hair wearing strange clothing that claim to live up here. They got stuck in this cloud layer after visiting the Picori Festival in town. But when they returned, the path forward was blocked and the area was infested with monsters. One of the sisters tells us that the key forward is to fuse together 5 golden kinstones in order to unblock the vortex that can carry us further into the clouds. With the goal in mind, we head off to explore this layer of clouds and find the pieces we need. We have to be exceedingly careful not to step wrong and fall off the clouds, as well as avoid the hidden cloud sharks that try to gobble us up. We end up exploring far and wide over what feels like the entire skyscape of Hyrule in order to find the missing kinstone pieces. Once we find a piece, we then have to find the accompanying magical cloud formation that will fuse the other half with us. But with perseverance and great care, we eventually open up the vortex that leads to the next layer of clouds. We watch as the sisters ascend to the next cloud layer and follow close behind them. The next cloud layer contains a large structure which strongly resembles the architecture of the Wind Temple ruins that we explored south of the Castor Wilds. While it doesn't make any sense that a structure of stone could sit atop the clouds, here the structure is anyway. We head inside and discover that we have actually visited this very building once before, when we saved the old man from the evil spirit. The people greet us joyfully, and the old man even awards us with some powerful light arrows that will greatly increase the damage of our bow. We continue up the structure until we meet the village elder. He explains that long ago the Wind Tribe moved this structure above the clouds from the Wind Ruins by magic, and ever since then they have watched the goings-on of Hyrule from above. They are aware of our quest and our need for the element of air, which is housed above us in the Palace of Winds. The Elder grants us permission to enter the Temple of Winds, even though surface dwellers are not normally permitted to do so. On the top of the structure of the Tribe of Winds, we find yet another vortex that launches us even higher into the sky, up to the palace. The palace shares many similarities in look and feel to the other architecture of the Wind Tribe, but this ancient place is in disrepair and infested with enemies. The floors are cracked, and if we stand on them too long in some places, the floor falls away entirely. Much of the palace floats on thin air, sustained by the magic of the Wind Tribe, and traversal is only possible with careful maneuvering around the moving platforms that are common in this area. Bob-ombs, Stalfos, floating mines, fire sprites, and pea-hats are all too common, and eventually we reach areas that are inaccessible without the ability to leap large distances. We find ourselves on a lone platform, surrounded by 8 Wizrobes that shoot beams of energy from their fingers before disappearing into the ether. We have to dodge the streams of deadly fire, and also try to slash the wizards while they are corporeal. After a seemingly interminable amount of dodge rolling and frantic slashing, we defeat the cabal of sorcerers and claim the treasure they guarded, the Rock's Cape. This magical cape allows us to leap into the air and glide over great distances, which will come in handy in this palace above the clouds. We leap back to the concealed platforms and see some solid-looking clouds that we can climb with our new ability to jump into the air. We ascend to the next level and continue our exploration of the palace to find the wind element. The palace continues to challenge us with moving floor tiles, puzzles requiring replication and careful maneuvering, loads of enemies blocking our progress, and now strong gusts of wind that threaten to blow us into the abyss of the sky if we aren't careful. Near what we sincerely hope is the top of the palace, we find ourselves face to face with 2 knights in golden plate armor, swinging large iron balls on long chains. We jump into battle, literally, and start slashing away at the knights. Using our shield, we block the giant iron balls, and the Rock's Cape help us leap over the deadly weapons when we have to. Eventually, both enemies fall to our sword and reward us with rupees and a key. In surprisingly short order, we find the big key and the door that needs to be opened with it. A little suspicious, we head inside, only to drop several dozen feet onto a lone platform. An armored Dark Nut appears on the platform with us, materializing out of thin air. Unfortunately for the Dark Nut, it charges at us and misses, landing it perilously close to the edge, where we shove it right off, killing it instantly. Instead of being rewarded with the element of wind, a teleporting square appears, and a bridge materializes leading further into the palace. So, we continue our explorations, hopeful that we're close to the end of this treacherous palace. After exploring even deeper into the palace, past more Wizrobes, Wallmasters, Stalfos, Moblins, and Gibdos, we finally make our way to the very top of the palace, where we find another large vortex that will launch us higher into the sky. At the roof of the world, in the rarefied air of the highest point in the sky, we land atop a giant blue manta ray flying in the air. A larger red manta ray joins in, and we find ourselves in battle with a pair of sky-dwelling Gyorgs. The larger red Gyorg has replication plates on its back, and its 2 rows of eyes open to reveal 3 eyeballs in odd formation. We use the replication pads to create duplicates of ourselves to match the formation of the eyeballs, and we swing away at them with all the speed we can muster. The Gyorg's eyes explode, causing the creature to scream in pain and begin to lose altitude. The smaller blue Gyorg flies up to attack us, but we leap onto its back instead. As we fly on top of the creature, one of its 4 eyes opens for a brief look at us before it swings its barbed tail around to catch us off guard. We hop over the tail, and when we land on the monster's back again, we swing away at the eyeball that is opened up. After a few hits, the red Gyorg appears alongside us once again, its eyes regenerated and ready for a fight. As we hop back onto the red manta, the blue one begins to shoot energy beams at us to stop us from attacking its partner. As we dodge the energy beams, and we also try to replicate ourselves for the attack on the double row of eyes. With some deft dodging, we again wound the red Gyorg, who spawns a small horde of green baby mantas before flying off to regenerate. These green spawnlings dive bomb us, but luckily all of them die with a single blow from our Picori blade. Yet again, we find ourselves on the back of the blue Gyorg, dodging its barbed tail and attacking its peeking eye. Eventually, the red Gyorg returns and we repeat the process of dodging the energy beams from its partner, with the added complication of consistently spawning hordes of green Gyorgs to compete with as well. But all of this combined can't stop us from completing the task of defeating these monsters in order to clear the skies of their menace. Finally, both Gyorgs suffer fatal wounds from our sword and explode in the skies that they terrorized. We leap off their backs and glide down with our rock's cape to the roof of the Palace of Winds, where the element of air awaits us. With the skies cleared and the fourth element claimed, we finally have all the pieces we need to reforge the sacred Picori blade to its true strength. Once we do, the path to the sacred light will be open, and with it, we can vanquish Vati, break the curses that he has bestowed on Princess Zelda, and hopefully the one he has placed upon Eslo as well. All that is left to do is revisit the Elemental Sanctuary and claim the sacred light. Then we can save Hyrule at last.
Well done, as always, Matt. That brings us to part 2, which is our takes, where we talk about this section of the game on how it made us feel. All right, gentlemen.
What a great plot recap, Matt. That was masterfully done.
You mean that whole 20-minute plot recap you just did?
Yeah, right? No, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time that you were explaining that to me.
The one that we absolutely are not recording later.
Right? Hey, we had 1.5 days between our last record and this one, okay? I feel like that deserves a little bit of slack.
I'll allow it.
Okay, so I have a few things that I want to mention about this week as just being super positives. One, just to start things off, I have really appreciated the diversity of stuff that happens between dungeons in Minish Cap so far. I think that the journey to the Royal Valley and King Gustav's grave might be one of my favorite little side areas in this entire game so far.
Gustav Gustafsson?
I mean, what a name. It just commands regality.
Gustav is really a truly amazing name.
That would be King Gustav Gustafsson Hyrule to you.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I totally agree. So I think we talked a little bit about this last week, which is that Minish Cap is walking that fine line of doing things in between dungeons where it doesn't feel bloated like Twilight Princess did. It still feels important and doesn't go really too far in either direction of either non-importance or bloat. And this is yet another section where a lot of stuff happens. All of it's important, all of it's fun, and it doesn't drag. And it's great. I think really Minish Cap has found that formula, and it has really dialed it in to a good spot.
I think you're right, Matt. I appreciate that they get a lot done. They jam-pack them with puzzles you've already kind of started to experience, but expanding on them. And I feel like the brevity of the side quest really helps. You get a plethora of side quests, but none of them seem to go on so long where they get tedious.
Yeah. And I will say, maybe this week just felt so fun because coming off last week, the library book return experience was not exactly the high point of this category of things.
I think it was the lowest point of this in the game.
Right. Mount Cornell, Caster Wilds, and now the Royal Valley and the area above the clouds. These are all really awesome and diverse areas with vastly different slates of things to do between them. They're all quite a lot more interesting than returning library books.
So I kind of agree, but also I got pretty invested in the library quest. Like I felt for this librarian, like all these mofos taking books out and not returning them for years.
Of course, our lawful good person on the podcast would feel for the
lawful,
librarian.
Neutral, no, lawful. I mean, don't put me in that hole. But
It's a good hole to be in.
It's
we
a good
admire
hole.
you.
It's a lawful good hole. But I really enjoyed this quest because I feel like it was kind of a mini exploration of Hyrule Town or Castle Town.
Yep.
And if you hadn't already spent a lot of time exploring, this did kind of make you span the breadth of Castle Town.
Yeah.
And so I could see where, to the people who aren't just general explorers who want to see everything, this kind of forced you to go through that town in a way that might open you up to new experiences.
So one thing I will also say about Minish Cap in general so far is it is probably the best game, especially the best top-down game I've ever played, that really forces you in a meaningful and fun way to explore the entirety of the map. Like, you really, unless you're just straight up mainlining from one thing to the next, you're pretty much going all over the map in between each section of game. Every area that you can access, you're basically revisiting in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And like Minish Cap is really good at that.
Well, and it's a good thing that they are too, because I think we said this in episode 1, when you look at the overworld map, Minish Cap's world is fairly small compared to others. I actually want to say that it's even significantly smaller than Link's Awakening's overworld map, right?
I think so, yeah.
Which is a much earlier game. But the thing is, it manages to not feel that way because of those meaningful retreads of past spaces, you know? It never really feels like a cheap gimmick, and I really do appreciate that about it. Like, I really, really love this incarnation of Hyrule, and it doesn't feel too small, and I think that's a really nice trick.
It's really fun, and they also do the good thing that we talked about in A Link to the Past, which is they take a small space and double it instead of going to the Dark World, and therefore doubling your space. You're just shrinking down and exploring. It's not total doubling, but it's a solid 5/8.
Sure.
You know, like a little bit more than half again.
Yeah.
So it is bigger by necessity of that. So
You're getting to do double the things in the same space.
Exactly.
You're using that same space, but you can now go in certain doorways and things you can't do before, go up certain vines and whatnot. I think that was pretty ingenious. The one thing I would have liked to have seen in this game, exploration-wise, that they don't have, is I did like the map marking from whatever the boat Zelda was.
Oh, yeah, a Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah, I don't even remember its name because it wasn't worth remembering. But sorry. Shots
take.
fired. I really, there's been a few times where chests or things have popped up that I'm like, I can't get to that right now, but I want to go revisit that. And if you put it down 2 or 3 nights without playing that part, you kind of forget stuff. Or like marking all the different dojos for the swordsman. I know I've been to 2 of them, and now I can't for the life of me tell you where those 2 dojos are. So that's kind of frustrating, and I wish I could have marked them.
So yeah, I think that map marking, pin placement, etc., is a really good modern invention in gaming that I think has done nothing but improve quality of life for gamers, and we're kind of spoiled by it in some ways. I think there's literally no way that they could have done any kind of that system on the Game Boy Advance. Like, it's just not possible.
100%, you're correct.
But
it's really just kind of a laziness on our part. Like,
yeah,
I could have taken notes, right? And they just made it too convenient in some of the newer games to take notes on your system.
And the other thing that I will give it props for, if you didn't know this, whenever you do a kinstone action, it shows up on your mini map. And if you look and you zoom in on the square on the map, it will actually flash at you and tell you that there's a kinstone thing there.
Oh.
And if you haven't gone and gotten it, as soon as you go get it, it goes away. So that way, the game itself is keeping track of your kinstone actions for you.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I did not either.
Yeah. So fun little tidbit.
Thanks for the pro tip. So, okay. So the after infusing the sword with our third element, we can now split into 3 copies. We're in the Royal Valley, right? Because immediately after leaving the Temple of Droplets, we were visited by the ghost of King Gustav.
Gustavsson Hyrule.
Yes, King Gustafsson Hyrule. And so we're in the Royal Valley, and I want to say something just aesthetically, this whole area, Zelda doing spooky is always kind of an interesting thing, right? Because some of the biggest examples of that are going to be like the more existential dread of Majora's Mask, right? You've got some of the more like, I don't want to say techno spooky, but some of the like the Twilight Princess aesthetic, right? Which is a little bit more melancholy than anything else. Then you've got Shadow Temple, which is just straight up like, here are bodies, you know?
Here's our torture chamber.
Exactly, right? This is my favorite gear of spooky in video games, and I feel like it slots really well into this game and its style and its aesthetic. This is like Halloween spooky, right? It's like purples and howling wolf noises and bats flying around, but it's like, you know, it's like you walked into a party city.
Haunted house.
You know?
It's haunted house spoopy.
And it's not so spooky that like a kid's going to be weirded out by it. Because I remember playing the Shadow Temple way back in the day on my first run through of Ocarina.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about being in here.
Exactly, yeah.
And this was something that like, so my daughter watched me play part of this and she wanted to like try and push all the gravestones open and stuff because I've shown her that on previous games. So she's remembering. And so she was into it and she thought that the ghosts that lick you to death were pretty funny.
Yes.
yeah, that's fair.
They do go to town.
It's
those
that
ghosts.
It's that kind of like quirky, funny, spooky, but still kind of giving you an atmosphere that's fun.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I don't know. It's just there's something that's so fun and interesting about it because it is very jarring from the rest of the Minish Cap world, which is bright and cheery. It has a very slight musical theme in this area that's kind of like Mario Party sounding is what I was kind of getting from it, you know?
I can hear that, yeah.
Mario Party haunted world a little bit. Anyway, I thought it was really nice. I thought this was a whole charming little area. And it's nice because, like I said, it's a fun, not exactly diversion because you have to do it in order to progress this whole quest. But it's fun time spent, and it does lead to a little mini dungeon experience at the very end. It's not all that dissimilar from the bottom of the well in the way that works in Ocarina of Time, right?
In what way?
Well, just as being kind of a smaller contained spooky experience that's got like dungeon elements within it without being a full dungeon. And yeah.
Okay,
that tracks.
There you go. Yes. Thank you for clarifying. I agree. I think it's fun. You also get kind of the Lost Woodsy vibes, which was fun.
Yeah.
The go up and then left and then up and then right and then up and then left. Like, you know, the whole little path you have to take. I like that. I don't know if I like that it gave you signposts literally for what to do next. I mean, I get it. I get it.
I will forgive it because there's still a thought puzzle involved with the signposts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still asking you to be kind of keeping track and memorizing the sequence that you've done up until that point.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so honestly, to me, that made sense because so I picture this as a place that people have to go, right? Like it's the graveyard. You probably go there to bury your families, to visit loved ones who have passed. And so it makes sense that someone would have mapped these woods, right? And so just for like a pure space being usable and being kind of livable, I think that kind of tracked because someone would have said, hey, this is kind of the way to go through here. And it looks like there's not a whole lot of graves, but someone's done it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. What did you guys think about the mini dungeon with the Gibdos and the 3 doors with keys and the all that stuff that you had to go through, the Royal Crypt?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun enough. Mike, I know before we started recording, you were talking about the moving platform, the sections where you have to split into 3, and then you have to not get hit by the partitions and walls as you're moving on the platforms, right?
Right. No, I thought that was really fun for like a little mini puzzle that they don't necessarily continue throughout, but I enjoyed it. It was kind of a fun, unique thing to that mini dungeon. And I'm playing a lot of Jedi Survivor right now, which is a lot of puzzle-based maneuvering. And for those of you that have played it, there's the times where you get those forced tears.
Yeah.
And it felt very much like a forced tear. Like, okay, how do I get through this? And you got to maneuver yourself through it. And so I enjoyed that.
The hardest force tear in the entire game is on Jeddah, and it's horrible.
Is that the fractured momentum one where you got to keep jumping between the ropes? Okay, so
I don't know if it's ropes. You and I'll have to compare notes later.
Okay,
This is
I
not
will.
a Jedi Survivor podcast, but yes.
no, I had a time on one of these that took me honestly 45 minutes to complete, and I was fixing to just like put the game away for a while because I was pissed.
Yep.
And I finally did it.
Yep.
And I rewarded myself with some fancy whiskey I've been saving
Hey,
because
there
of
you
this
go.
game. So, but we'll talk more about that later.
No, I agree. I think this is a really fun little mini dungeon. I think it's interesting, and this was something that actually kind of happened in the Wind Temple also, which was you can choose multiple paths, but only one of them is like the quote unquote correct path. In the Wind Temple, you could choose the left or the right door, and if you chose the right door, the dungeon was like twice as long because you had to go like all the way through it without the mole mitts, and then to get another key to go back to the left door to get the mole mitts.
Yeah.
So like this one has 3 doors, and you're supposed to choose the one in the middle because it's the direct path through. But if you choose the left or the right, then it's just, a much longer experience. I think that's interesting. Not a lot of Zelda games do that. How do you? I don't know. Did either of you choose the left or the right door? I went straight for the middle one, so I didn't have any weird experiences. But
I was a righty.
Yeah.
And so I did have a little bit of an extended experience, but it didn't feel bad. It was just kind of one of those like, okay, I chose poorly.
yeah, but you didn't turn into a skeleton and die.
Yeah,
so
no.
That's good.
I retained my skin on my bones.
That's for the best.
I did it the same way you did it, Matt.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So anything else we want to say about the Royal Valley? It was fun meeting a deceased past king of Hyrule, right?
Yeah.
There's just something about meeting the kings of Hyrule that's always fun. Most of these games that feature kings of Hyrule are ones that I only started playing as an adult, right? They weren't games that I really played in my childhood much. And so for me, it's always kind of a fun little extra. It's like, oh yeah, that's like, of course, when I was younger, I was wondering, like, okay, Zelda's a princess, so
where's the king and the queen?
A king or something, right? And so I always love meeting these characters. I love their design and everything. King Gustav is a true bro for granting us access to the sealed door in the Veiled Falls. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was really cool of him.
Yeah. I do wonder, like, what is the economy of gold kinstones that unlock secret things like archaeological ruins in Hyrule?
So my headcanon is that there's a special vault that they keep special kinstones at for the royal palace, and that because he was such a special king, old Gustafsson, that they buried him with one.
Okay.
And so he was retaining that with his ghost.
Gotcha. I wonder if he was buried with his servants.
It doesn't look like it.
No, I was expecting
maybe the
sarcophagi.
Gibdos. Yeah, maybe the Gibdos.
Ooh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
The Gibdos, which we mentioned it last week, but if you didn't know or didn't hear, use the flame lantern. You can burn their wrappings right off, and then they're a lot easier to take care of.
Huzzah.
I didn't know that either, but I sure beat the heck out of them.
I did burn them down to cinders before. Although they kept running into me anyway. So like as I would burn them, they would run right into me, and half the time I'd get hugged by them still. It's just Gibdos were very annoying.
I didn't have any trouble with the Gibdos. If you swing your sword fast enough, they literally can't hug you even if they're trying to.
Oh, okay.
So if you spam that sword button.
Maybe I should have just been spamming sword buttons.
That's one thing that I love so much about, like, there are some top-down Zelda games where your sword swing is a little bit more limited, and there's some where you can really just go for it. Like Link's Awakening, you can just go freaking nuts, right? Minish Cap is one of those too, where it's like as fast as you can push the button, you're just getting tons and tons of yeah, right? Like you're just going. And yes, that is definitely, if you're not burning the wrappings off the Gibdos, then that's how you got to do it.
I mean, my philosophy for this game is the best offense is a good offense and the best defense is a good offense.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I do respect that. So we get the gold kinstone from King Gustav, and now it's time to head back over to the Veiled Falls, which I had visited prior to this, just very briefly, long enough to figure out that there's nothing in here for me to do, And so coming back here, this is actually like the second of 3 areas that we get to explore in this whole section of game that we haven't previously been to, And I like the Veiled Falls area. It's a system of caves and stuff that is not all that dissimilar from Tal Tal Heights in Link's Awakening. And I spent a fair amount of time just kind of exploring, going between all the rooms and all the little caves, trying to find the secrets. There's one room that has got several likes, but it's also got a crap crap ton of rupees hidden in the water. That was fun. There's a lot of poking around that you can kind of do in here, which I appreciated.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed exploring the space, and I do appreciate the plethora of treasure there is to find. I think that's one fun thing about the Kinstone, putting treasure back in places you've already explored and kind of forcing you to go back to them. I found out that I'm kind of frustrated with the rupee economy in this game.
You have more rupees than you could ever spend.
And like, there's nothing other than buying more Kinstones really that you could end up doing with them, in my opinion. Early on in the game, I felt like the rupee economy was excellent.
Yep.
I feel like, I had to go farm a little bit, but not like overly much, and I could buy things I wanted. But then you hit kind of a wall with your wallet, which kind of pisses me off. You only get to that 999 with your max wallet, I believe, in this game.
Yep, it's accurate.
And so I frequently am running around with 999 and I'm finding 200 rupee pieces.
That then they just go into the ether.
Yeah. And so I kind of get pissed off, but it's not worth me like going back to a save. And so what I've kind of done is whenever I get close to max, I just go buy a bunch of Kinstones that don't really matter and then go on.
Yeah.
But I think that's not like the best use of the economy.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that the store only has the medium quiver and the medium bomb bag, and there's really nothing else useful to buy except maybe, secret seashells if you're worried about figurines. But I have literally not done any figurines mostly because I'm not just going to sit there and constantly hit the A button and then wait for the whole thing to cycle. And then
it's a huge pain.
Yeah, it's just a time waste. So, just like, I think that there is, and this is a problem in a lot of Zelda games, not just Minish Cap. In fact, I would say most Zelda games have a poor rupee economy, in that you end up with so many rupees that there's just nothing to do with them, and you're just like, okay, cool.
Tears of the Kingdom is the exception to this rule.
Amen. Yes.
But yeah, I completely 100% agree. And that does blunt the excitement of some of this like treasure hunting for sure. I appreciate on paper that there are so many little nooks and crannies to find treasure as you're exploring, right? But it is kind of a downer on the whole process for sure. I will say I took a mental note of the tippy top of Giant Goron's head at the very top of the mountain.
Saw that one.
So gonna come back to that later, see what's up.
I mean, I guess, have y'all been able to do anything with that yet at this point in the game?
There is a Kinstone that makes him rise up out of the, and you can talk to him, and I don't remember what he does, but there is a Kinstone somewhere that allows you to do that.
I spent probably not a long time, but like 10 minutes, like throwing bombs at the edge of that map, throwing other things, just trying to get him to come out. Like I went and got water from the spring.
Did you dump water on him?
Yeah. And I'm trying to do all these things, and I'm like, just talk to me, you giant Goron. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, that's a later in the game thing.
Yeah. So I proceeded straight past the top of Big Goron's head and into the giant like cyclone that shoots you up into the sky. This is a ton of fun because we pretty much immediately get an answer to what happened to the Wind Tribe, right? We end up basically on a shelf of clouds that you can traverse freely. And this is, I mean, man, talk about your areas of the game that are completely distinct from anywhere else that we've been before. And honestly, anywhere else that we've ever been in a Zelda game. Like this to me felt more Mario, honestly, a little bit than it felt
very
Zelda.
Mario. And
I think that's a good
You're not
comparison.
falling through the clouds. There's their own civilization up here.
Yeah.
And they're not weird chicken people. That was my favorite part.
They are not. They are human people and they wear turbans. Good for them.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, this was kind of a fun little aside. How did y'all feel about this whole little interstitial area where you had to find golden Kinstone pieces and match them up with specific pedestals, and the whole way that you get around is traversal via cyclones, and you're doing a lot of floating and stuff?
I thought it was good. I come back to something that Max said in the Discord, which is it feels like Kinstones being used for plot devices is not great. And I didn't really feel that way until this week when it's like there's 6 of them, and then it's like there's just so many things that are tied to this that it's kind of repetitive.
So I was cool with the King Gustafsson. that Kinstone would get to a new area and his whole like little mini dungeon section. But then I felt like they kind of cheapened that with this section. Honestly, if they would have halved it and only made me find a couple and make the area a little more interesting, because the first couple I was like, okay, this is fun. Like you go solve a little puzzle, fly around. But there was a time with this particular spot, and that's what I talked about with Lyndon earlier, that I kind of felt like this was okay, come on, I'm tired of flying around and finding gold pieces.
Yep. Yeah. No, finding 6, or I think it was 5, finding 5 gold kinstones to open up the path to the top of the sky was a little much. And I think mostly it just comes down to I'm just kind of tired of using kinstones for every single thing in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with it. Kinstones being the main device here was sort of neither here nor there for me. I will say, if there's one mechanic that I think is not quite as polished as it could be in this game, it's the depth perception. Any puzzle that involves the perception of height.
Yep.
And that's something that recurs from this point all the way through the end of the episode, right? Starting here, right, we're doing a lot of jumping into cyclones and then floating off to another one and then to another one and then to another one. And it's a little tough to keep visual track of, one, how far you are from no longer floating, right? Like how close are you to dropping and losing some hearts? But then also it's kind of tough to tell it sometimes, like just how close you are to the little cyclones, you know?
Yeah. No, and I ran into that problem quite a bit where you would fall next to a cyclone, and if you didn't immediately go away from the cyclone, you go back on some of those ones. And so I would frequently jump down to an area and then try and explore, but immediately walk back into the cyclone and fly back to the previous. And that got kind of old fast for me.
Yeah. No, the depth perception is rough. And we talked a little bit about this with Josh, I think, which is like, the only top-down game, 2D game, sort of, that really doesn't have this problem is A Link Between Worlds, where they had the 3D slider. So, I mean,
which we didn't use.
Yeah, there are some just limitations of the fact that it's top down, but I think you could mitigate this with something like, especially on like Eslo's fly time, you could give him like a little timer or something that counts down for like until you drop. But yeah, it is difficult.
Yeah, 100%. Difficult, not like I was gonna say, I didn't get meaningfully set back in this part at all. It's just, if I'm looking for nits to pick, then this is the easy one, right? Once we get through this area, do you remember how many gold kinstones were required? I want to say 6, but was it 5? Okay, cool. So we finally unlock so we've been in the mid clouds, right?
Yeesh.
We finally unlocked the tippy top clouds. Oh, no. We started off in lower clouds, and now we unlock mid clouds, right? Mid clouds.
Cloudception,
yeah. Mid clouds is the seat of Wind Tribe power, I guess. This is where all the Wind Tribe people live. They have a massive structure that they've somehow built on the clouds. I have questions.
I don't.
Okay, cool. Well, you know what? That's probably smart. It's probably best not to ask these questions, right? I should just be going with it. I should be suspending my disbelief and just embrace childlike wonder. No, so it's fun because as soon as I got up here, I had this, got it moment where I realized where the portal that I had unlocked last week sent me. Right?
Yeah. With the old man and the ghost.
Yes. Okay, so
did you all save old man with the ghost?
I did.
Me too.
Yeah. But so did you do it before you got up here for the first time?
Yeah. So I actually did it from the portal. And it took me a little bit because obviously I'm like, poor old man and the ghost. I tried cutting the ghost. I tried a couple other things. I tried kinstoning that ghost. Maybe it would love me. But then I actually did. So the pot, the gust pot or whatever its name is, the jar of winds,
the gust jar.
Gust jar. I actually use that very frequently, just as my kind of side item.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for sucking in bad guys or blowing up things.
And then shooting them back at other bad guys.
100%. I love that. You have a giant man cannon. But I had used that and I knew it was the right thing, but it took me about 5 minutes to get the ghost actually sucked into a pot. But I did save him before. I did look up post this that if you don't save him before the clouds, I think he dies.
Yeah, so this is one of the. So we were mentioning this last week. I used it as my bloopy trail, so I'll go ahead and talk about it here. This is the whole section I was mentioning. If you do not save Grandpa before you get up here, then yes, Grandpa dies, but also you lose access to the reward that you get from having done this earlier. So if you don't go and save Grandpa via the portal earlier in the game, then you cannot get the light arrows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. I forgot he gave you the light arrows, too.
Yeah, they're completely missable if you don't do that in advance. And it's like, they're a completely optional item. You don't need them to beat the game. They are pretty cool. I mean, like the way that the light arrows work is that you hold. So when you draw an arrow, you hold to charge it. And then once it's charged, you can release it. And they one-hit KO a lot of stuff in the game. They're significantly more powerful than regular arrows.
So, but based on that being an optional deal, I feel like this is probably not a requisite to beat Vati.
No, not at all. No, you do not need those light arrows. They're just a really fun thing to have, basically.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you got to this point in the game and you didn't have them, then sorry, you're not getting them.
You ain't going to get them.
Yeah.
Well, luckily I got him.
Yay! There you go. There you go. And the thing was, back when I saved Grandpa from the ghost, I knew there was a side quest in the game that resulted in a missable item, and I wasn't going to go Google what that was. Like, I wanted to just see, like, okay, am I going to do it just on my own? And I was happy to see that I did. That was a fun moment for me.
And we saved a Grandpa, which, I mean, just kudos to us.
There you go.
We did save a Grandpa. The Wind Tribe. I mean, I love their digs. This is a cozy place.
Yeah, no, if I had been given the chance to live anywhere in here, I might live up there with the Wind Tribe, just because I feel like it's a pretty sweet place. And then you partner that with like one of these birds or some kind of other companion, then I feel like you'd be in good shape.
This, more than anything else, feels very Skylofty, right? Like, this feels like vestiges of Skyloft civilization, a lot more so than any of the other like skybound civilizations that we've had in a variety of
person.
Bird.
No more nipple chickens.
Yeah, bird person, Zonai, etc. Right. So, and I really do like it for that, but it's a really fun looking place. Like, these characters are dressed differently. The architecture of the palace is,
most of them have red hair.
Right. Yeah. Like, the architecture of all of this is different. It's just fun. It's a really fun place to be. I'm guessing you enjoyed this location.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think the architecture is interesting, kind of Aztec-y, Mayan-y. They dress kind of like the not the Ook. What are the other ones from Phantom Hourglass? The ones that had us genocide the Ook.
Those were the Uke.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, they dress like the other guys, the genocidal maniacs.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a little bit
problematic.
The ones that were like, are they penguins? Do they have suits? What's the deal?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that their skin?
Half seal people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I did like it. I also am curious if the guy in Castletown who we Kinstone fused with to create the portal, is it implied that he is from the Wind Tribe?
I think so. He said he's on a pilgrimage.
But when
to come see the
when I talked to him when he got there, he seemed surprised that he was in the clouds, which is why I don't think
he was surprised that we were in the clouds.
No, it sounded like he was. He was like, I'm a traveler and I'm in the clouds now. And
yeah,
you lived here.
Unsure.
Okay.
Unclear.
I have questions about what transit is like between the clouds and the surface, because those two people we meet in the lower clouds definitely said that they were coming back up from the Picori Festival.
Right. So how did they get down?
This is a question.
We've been given enough options for that in Zelda with gliders and stuff. I have to feel like they've probably perfected that.
Or maybe they're just very lightweight people who can, like, they don't take fall damage.
Well, so I thought that too, right? But then we're also up there not falling through. So do we have like special spirit Hyrule power or...
I think we have video game logic power.
Maybe they just all have rocks capes.
Ooh.
Oh, that would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. They're not special, Matt. Everyone's got one.
Fine. Okay, fine.
So this house is also great because it's a little Kinstone repository.
Seriously, dude, there's so many Kinstones up here.
I love the throw in, like, please take our Kinstones. Like, you're not stealing. We want you to have them.
Take them.
So the lawful good in me was like, Thank you.
Thank you. Do these guys create kinstones? Are kinstones like a thing of the?
No, I think they just over collected, right?
Oh.
They were the people who were really into pogs, right? And they went
Beanie Babies.
they went a little hard on the Beanie Babies.
Got it.
They got way more than were actually valuable to have, and the
Their
bubbles burst.
The
and
return on investment is not panning out the way they thought it would.
They're my 40-year-old aunt that literally thought she was going to be a millionaire from Beanie Babies, and she had the entire headboard of her bed covered in Beanie Babies.
That's so creepy.
And like little 10-year-old Detective Mike is like, oh man, you're so smart and this is awesome. And then I'm like, oh, actually, you're not.
Actually, that was real dumb.
So your
Still
aunt
love you.
is not a millionaire.
not from
Beanie Babies.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna let that lay where you put it down. I'm not gonna pick it up and run with it.
Me neither.
Okay, cool. Anywho, yes, it's very similar to that. Frustratingly, there's one specific shape of green kinstone that I don't have, and I need it to go fuse with one of the Tingles brothers, and I just can't seem to get it. So I didn't get it here, and that was frustrating for me. Anyway, so we
Go buy from the Goron.
Okay. So we come up through the entire, this isn't the Palace of Winds. What is this place? The Wind House. The House of Winds, I guess. The Wind Tribe's house. We make it onto the roof. I love the environment of the roof of the Wind Tribe's house, right?
Yeah.
I like it for the same reasons that I enjoyed the area where you get the Ocarina of Winds after beating that temple, right? It's got big grand architecture vibes. It felt like the kind of area that you would find on the surface in Skyward Sword to me.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That's
That's
cool.
fair.
Yeah. And I enjoy that about it. Bright and cheery with colors that pop and
I really like just all the birdos that are just hanging out up there. That's fun.
So this is a weird segue that's probably not going to hit for a lot of people, but have y'all seen the Christmas movie Klaus on Netflix?
No.
Okay, so this is a plug for Klaus. Go watch this, please. It's a Christmas movie on Netflix that has, I can't even tell you all the actors, but it's an origin story for Santa that is honestly my favorite animated Christmas movie ever.
Okay.
And there's a group of people in there that are supposed to be kind of like the Inuits of Northern Europe, and they have really brightly colored clothes and turbans.
Okay.
And that's who these people were for me. Go watch Klaus. It's awesome.
All right,
All
cool.
right, fair enough.
Yeah. I'm going to watch. It sounds like a good Valentine's Day movie.
Yeah, Valentine's Christmas, sure.
Whatever. Do we have anything else we want to say about this in-between area before we get into the dungeon map?
No, I'm good. Oh, wait, no. Cloud-dwelling sharkfishies are piranha things. Very terrifying.
So imagine if those ever fall from the sky onto the land below.
What immediately came to mind for me are those memes where it's like, sharkfish doesn't exist. Sharkfish can't hurt you. And it shows sharkfish.
Sharkfish does exist.
Oh no, the cloud sharks do exist.
They do hurt you.
Sharkfish will mess your shit up.
So if there's fog, which is essentially a cloud on the ground, do they exist in the fog?
Oh no.
This is like a Zelda horror movie.
Yeah, I think there's a Stephen King book and movie about that. It's called The Mist. Yeah.
They could be foglets from The Witcher 3.
Ooh.
You're a foglet.
I've always said that about you, Matt.
That's really not a good thing.
Your spirit animal's a foglet.
I've never played that game. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, that's highly, highly bad.
It's your Patronus.
Oh, that's horrible. Foglets are basically dementors. It doesn't work that way.
I said what I said.
He said what he said.
Nonsensical.
All right, y'all, let's get into part 3, which is the dungeon map, where we talk about this week's dungeon from mechanics to music and more. This week's dungeon is the Palace of Winds. I just want to say that as soon as I got up here, I realized that, I was mentioning on Twitter the other day that some of the concept art for Minish Cap is some of the best concept art that's ever been done for a Zelda game. It's so great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was realizing as soon as we were up here that the piece of art where it's Link squaring off against a dark nut with a huge ziggurat behind them is portraying this dungeon area.
The mini boss-ish fight.
Yeah. And I love that piece of art so much. and it actually very accurately portrays the feel and vibe of this entire temple, which I really appreciate. The Palace of Winds is a very interesting dungeon. It's got lots of floors. It's highly vertical. It's very linear in your traversal through it. This dungeon has very little backtracking. The item that you get is the Rock's Cape, which allows you to both hop over gaps and also hold the button while jumping to ascend even higher. The entire crux of this dungeon is to climb as high as you can in the temple, get the boss key. You have a mini boss fight against this Dark Nut. And then once that happens, what you're trying to do is to get even further up to the very tippy top of the temple to fight the boss and claim the element of wind. It's like, honestly, it's a very unique dungeon, and I'm having trouble thinking of something that I could compare it to. I'm having trouble thinking of an analogous. I'm having trouble thinking of an analogous dungeon in another Zelda game. It's a really good one, and visually, at least, very evocative. Like, just a very fun place to be hanging out. Let's see. Enemies that we fight in this dungeon. We have got, so we're back in normal Link size, which means it's not going to be bugs and dragonflies and stuff like that. We've got the ball and chain soldiers. We have blue choo-choos. We've got Stalfos, Bob-ombs, moblins, crows, wizrobes of both the fire and the ice variety. We've got
and regular green boys.
Yeah. We've got Gibdos. We have floor masters, likes,
red Gibdos,
spiked beetles, and another enemy from the Mario series, Lakitu.
Yes, I noticed. I was going to see if you called him out.
Yeah, he's not holding a camera here.
He's throwing electrified balls at you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're 100% right.
Yep. And so really interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where Link's Awakening was so hyper intentional about its Mario callbacks, right? And it feels like this game just sort of stumbles into them a little bit, but it's cool. I still appreciate seeing these characters. So yeah, that's just the quick elevator pitch on the Palace of Winds. Let's go around the table real quick. Mike, how did you enjoy this dungeon?
So I did enjoy this dungeon. Pardon me. So I really liked the traversal and having to kind of use the new item. I thought that it was a very unique space, like you said. The visuals, I can't recall the music off the top of my head, but I feel like it was very fitting.
It has kind of like a nice whimsical sort of backing track. It's not nearly as intense as like what was happening in the Temple of Droplets last week.
Right. So no, I enjoyed it. I did feel like of several of the dungeons, this one didn't quite draw me in as others did. I enjoyed some of the puzzles. One of my qualms with this dungeon is I feel like I got the compass and the map actually fairly late in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, super late.
And so my headspace was that I thought I was missing this the whole way. And I'm like, did I miss a turn somewhere in this entire vertical climb? But it's kind of a frustration because it's hard to go back up and down this easily in the dungeon.
It is.
And so I was like, oh crap, did I miss the compass and the map? And I hate that as a completionist.
Mm-hmm.
So that frustrated me until I got them. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I guess I didn't miss much.
Especially once you get to what you think is the door to the boss room.
Right. Yeah.
Because you get the big key and all that does is lead to the mini boss fight. But for me, I was sitting here thinking like, okay, I never got a compass and a map. I saw at least one heart piece that I didn't manage to get. And now I think I'm about to go and fight the boss. I don't know. Do I need to go?
Dude, I spent a solid
backtracked
10 minutes trying to backtrack and like not figuring it out. And eventually I was like, you know what? I have enough heart pieces. I don't care.
So and that's where I eventually landed, Matt. But same thing on my end. And that was my kind of frustration with this is I spent 10 to 15 minutes backtracking like, oh crap, well, I don't want to miss a heart piece. And then part of me is also thinking, oh, maybe this isn't something I'm supposed to have yet, which ended up being true. But you don't know that until you get there. And so as an explorer and a completionist, I'm frustrated until I get all my stuff.
It was a pretty severe head fake. And like, look, I think the head fake in the Temple of Droplets, which was you see the element frozen and you see the boss frozen, was I think a little more well done than this one because it was more telegraphed. Like when the very first room you come into has the boss key or the boss door, then you kind of realize like, okay, this feels like a head fake.
And I'm going to come back here.
Exactly. This felt like, oh, maybe this is just a really short dungeon. Or maybe I like went through this way faster than I was supposed to. Maybe I missed all of the extra paths that I could have taken. Like it felt more tricky, I guess.
Yeah, tricky is a good word.
Droplets.
Mm-hmm. And then as never having played this before, I was like, oh, crud. What am I missing here? I think if I were to go back and play this in a year and kind of understand that that's a part of it, I would have a lot more svelte dungeon experience.
Yeah. I think it would have been better to have made this first big key door just a regular small key door. And I think that would have solved this particular problem for me.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. Matt, I mean, how do you feel about the dungeon as a whole?
No, I really liked it. I think it has some pretty cool puzzles. It makes really good use of the create copies of yourself and avoid obstacles. Mm-hmm. It kind of builds on the theme that happened in the crypt with the moving platforms, and even the boss fight has some of that, but we'll get to that later. I think that the Rock's Cape is a really cool iteration on the Rock's Feather, where you can do just a regular jump, but also an extended flight. Yeah. That's really fun. It's another thing that we talked about earlier on in the season, which is Minish Cap takes either old items or creates new items and makes them unique and different and uses them in a cool way. And this is just another version of that. I think this dungeon was really well done. I think it does fall into reusing the same trick over and over again. Just a little bit too much, and that's me being nitpicky. Again, trying to find nits to pick. I think I could use like one or two less puzzles that are just jump up on 3 or 4 cloud levels and then jump over, or one less jump into the moving airstream to ferry yourself across a larger gap than you normally could get.
Yeah.
But other than those very minor nitpicks, I thought this was a really good dungeon. I think this is the best dungeon that is Link's full size. Of Link's full-size dungeons.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And just to catch you up, Mike, last week we were talking about how we were sort of noticing that the dungeons where you were miniature Link were tending to be better than full-size Link ones. So like when you compare Deepwood Shrine and Temple of Droplets to Wind Ruins and Cave of Flames, the miniature ones were pretty clearly superior, right? This one really rides the line for me. I feel like this is a full-size Link dungeon that's actually pretty memorable and has a lot of pretty fun stuff going on. I think for the Rock's Cape, as a concept for an item, Rock's Feather just better is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Yeah. It's just a ton of fun. Going back to conversations around depth perception that we had earlier in the episode, I do think so. Specifically, the areas where you use the Rock's Cape to ascend, basically like a column of clouds, right? Like it looks like it's a stack of clouds that you're basically just jumping up. I will say that. Someone's trash can.
Oh.
I will say that it looked at first blush like you were supposed to hop from one to the next to the next to the next, right? They looked sort of like
they look off center stacked.
Yeah, like a bridge that was leading horizontally off somewhere rather than vertically somewhere. And it took me a second to realize, oh, that's not the case. I just have to stand in one place and keep jumping up.
I definitely fell off of it more than once.
Yeah. For sure. And it's also kind of a pain because once you're at the top of one of those stacks, jumping off of it and getting back down to the floor below you is kind of a hassle, right? Like it takes a little bit of precision, and I don't know. Going backwards in this dungeon was just something that was not a ton of fun for me, and so I didn't really do any of it. I think that this dungeon has a lot of fun movement precision puzzles, right? There are a lot of duplication puzzles, especially the ones where you have to arrange yourself in a specific way to hit a grouping of switches. Those were good.
Yep.
I appreciated that.
Yeah, no, I liked that iteration on the duplicating yourself. It wasn't just duplicate yourself and push something. It was you need to find the arrangements you need to take to get through the puzzle and hit the switches. I did enjoy that aspect of it. And then if you didn't get it, it didn't punish you overly much for that, which was also nice.
I also liked the use of the crumbly floors. Like it added a certain sense of urgency to crossing large spaces, especially there. I'm thinking of the one puzzle where you had to triplicate yourself, but with a gap in between. So it's like every other one, and then you cross the crumbly floor while dodging in between pillars. That specifically was like, I thought was a pretty good puzzle. That's pretty simple, but like was executed really well.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I feel like that kind of fit in with that you're built on freaking clouds.
Yeah.
And so it's reasonable you're going to have some crumbly floors, which makes
not the most solid foundation in the world.
Makes me wonder how the House of Winds stands the test of time. I'm sure they have a large budget for foundation repair, and I hope that insurance covers it.
Yeah, you got to get that taken care of before you try and sell the place, right?
Clay's bad, clouds worse.
Yeah.
Yep. You got to have the pier and beam foundation, man.
Yeah, that's going to show up
Homeowner jokes.
That's going to show up on any inspection, right? You're never going to move the house that way. Yeah. So, no, I totally...
Shannon, that's $2,000, but it's built on clouds.
Also can wreak havoc with your plumbing. As the foundation shifts, those pipes will burst.
Yeah,
Dude.
well, is it cast iron or have they upgraded to PVC?
Or are you just building an outhouse and pooping down to the ground level?
No one lives in Vale Falls because it's just shit falling from the sky constantly.
I was going to say, the Wind Tribe has the best plumbing situation in all of Hyrule. The people who live underneath of them, not so much.
You're like, man, the birds up there must be nuts.
Totally the way it actually happens. Let's see. There were a few really trickety spots in this dungeon that reminded me of older style Zelda puzzles. They were mostly the ones that were happening as you went further up the tower. There are a few cracked floors that you have to break in order to fall down to a floor beneath you.
Yeah, that one was fun.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's confusing at first. You don't realize what you're supposed to do. And then it kind of clicks and you're like, oh, I get it.
That was a fun moment that they threw in just a couple of those. And so 90% of the time it's negative to fall through. But then you kind of look at, especially after you get the dungeon map and you're looking at the space spatially between the floors.
Is that how you're looking at it?
I couldn't come up with a better word. Matt's the wordsmith here. I'm but a lowly detective.
Well, we know I'm terrible with words, apparently. So
I do word good.
No, for sure. One thing that I've been meaning to mention the last few weeks and just hasn't occurred to me, I'm remembering it now, is I really like, this is actually an example of depth perception done pretty well in this game. I like when you're on an upper floor and there's a gap and you can jump down to a floor beneath you, and as you're moving around you're seeing like a parallaxing.
You're seeing the change.
Yeah. Really cool, really dynamic, good use of the graphical power that they have to work with here. And that's true in just a more environmental way of like looking down at the world below you from the clouds too. Just kind of seeing snippets of Hyrule underneath of you was similarly neat. But
yeah, it was a good use of perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a word I know.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
I have a question for both of you. How did you kill the Dark Nut?
Oh, I wanted to ask you this earlier. I bombed him.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Lyndon?
Just a lot of fancy footwork.
I made him run off the edge.
Really?
Oh,
you
what?
can do that?
Yeah. I stood close enough to the edge that when he sword charged me, I sidestepped out of the way and he straight up fell off the side.
Oh, look at you.
I wonder if that's how you're supposed to do it or if it's just like a cool
really
option.
Funny.
So I started the frontward attack, obviously, and then figured out that wasn't working. And so I just kind of called back to my memory banks on how to defeat enemies that are heavily armored. And I'm like, I'm going to bomb him. But he did a lot of kind of inconvenient movement for that.
Yeah.
So what I did is I just, I have 99 bombs or whatever.
So you just bomb the entire area until one of them blows up on him.
You've got 99 bombs and a bomb is one.
Is one.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
That was bad.
It was bad, but as a dad, I think that's pretty perfect.
Thank you.
So no, I did the bomb and I would set like 3 bombs at a time, then kind of huddle in the corner. And as he closed in on me, he would hit one of them. So it wasn't overly taxing. It just cost me like 12 bombs.
Yeah, that's not that bad.
I will say I started off this fight trying to do it the same way that I did previous Dark Nut fights, which is just do a bunch of rolling. And I was just going all kinds of off the edge.
I was about to say, you fell off the edge a lot, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I realized very quickly that was not the correct way to do this. So,
well, I feel like I had the most fun with it.
It's a fun fight. This Dark Nut is a beefier boy than the ones that we've met in the past. I still think that the Dark Nut fights in this game are really fun and awesome.
Yeah, I agree with
love
that.
them.
No, they were a fun enemy.
I also really like the art style of this one. He's got the cape and the red armor, and he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
Yeah, 100%. As far as mini boss fights go, I'll fight a Dark Nut any day.
Never a bad time.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you fart?
No, I would not.
Okay. Moving past that.
Take it again.
Would you guys fight Dark Nut with any of your Patreon members at any time?
Yes, I would. I totally would.
So one of the rooms that I had the most fun with in this entire dungeon was the crazy one where it's what are these enemies called? They are the Bombarosa. They're the spiky bomb.
Oh, yeah. They look like an enemy from Kirby.
Yeah, they do. Anyway, it's the room that just has a huge line of them, and you have to like go through a maze of them. And if you trip it at any point,
then the door on the opposite side closes.
Yeah.
Then the switch trips and the door closes, and you have to start over.
And you're like, nah!
I did do that a couple times in a row.
Tons of fun. Just really, really big fun on that one. It's so funny because talking about Mario connections, right? Obviously, Cloud World feels pretty Mario, but all of these areas where you're on a chain link floor and you have to like hop through the flippy door.
It feels like every Bowser's Castle ever.
Super Mario.
Yeah.
Super Mario World.
Hey. Yeah. Super Mario Bros?
How cool would it have been if Bowser was the boss for this?
That honestly kind of would have been a little too on the nose, but also awesome.
Exactly, right? It's like, we really are crossing the streams here, aren't we? Yeah. No. So, do we have anything else we want to say about the dungeon just generally before we start talking about the boss of the dungeon?
Dungeon good.
The aesthetics were great.
Yeah.
Like literally the sense of place just based on the aesthetic of the dungeon is really great. I love how unique it feels. It also feels like a less ruined version of the Wind Temple. And I like the symmetry between those two, how the architecture feels the same. I think it's just really well designed, and kudos to the art team.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk about the boss, which I actually didn't know what the name of the boss was. I just looked it up. So this is the name of the boss is
Gyorg pair.
Yeah, the Gyorg pair, which is weird to me because we've seen
Gyorg is a Majora's Mask boss.
Gyorg is a Majora's Mask boss and looks entirely different than these
looks
guys.
like a worm.
Yeah.
No, wait, Gyorg is the fish.
Gyorg's the fish in the Great Bay Temple.
The giant piranha.
Yeah, and this is more of like a giant manta ray sort of thing. Or two
giant manta rays.
Yeah.
So whenever I went into this boss fight, I just imagined that this killed Steve Irwin, and it spurred my hate fire for this boss. So I murdered him.
There you go. I think that's a very good thing to do.
Only proper thing to do for sure. I love asymmetrical boss fights, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like two separate entities and you're kind of trying to tackle them two separate ways.
Twin Roba.
Yeah, exactly. Like really, really lends a I don't know, like a fun dynamic where you're having to go back and forth between
twin mold
mechanics and it's a
very frantic fight.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, and it devolves into bullet hell at some points, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't Mothra bullet hell.
No,
it was not Mothra bullet hell, but it was a lot of like, oh man, I'm dodging, weaving, woo, woo, woo. I feel like Neo in the Matrix, like you're doing that.
Well, it's a super pain in the ass.
If you can dodge a manta ray, you can dodge a bomb.
It's just such a freaking pain in the ass when you get your guys all lined up to hit the eyes, right?
Yep.
And then blue Gyorg comes in off side of the screen and just starts like shelling you with those bolts that make your
and you can't do
duplicates go
anything
away.
to him. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had a mirror shield so I could just be like, Spoonk.
Yeah. Doesn't work. And yeah, it's like coordination is required here. But I love this whole concept where Big Gyorg has the bank of like 8 eyes, and you have to align yourself on the duplication pads in order to hit them in a certain specific way.
Incredible use of the duplication mechanic.
Yeah. 100% loved it so much. And even once you get on top of little Gyorg and you're just having to like hit the right eye as it opens up, you know, while dodging his spinny tail.
Fun game of whack-a-mole.
It's great. It's really great. Mike, how'd you like this boss fight?
I did enjoy this boss fight. I enjoyed the kind of frantic aspect. I feel like some of the bosses have been maybe a little too easy.
Yeah.
And even with this one, I didn't have a problem. I've not even used a fairy or died in this whole game. But I did enjoy that it felt frantic. I liked that it thwarted you a couple times. And I thought that the having to jump between them was a good use of the item for the temple mixed with this boss fight.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, at this point in the game, I have so many hearts that I was never in any real danger of bad things happening here. If Minish Cap had a hero mode, I feel like this boss fight would probably be giving me some trouble.
Especially if that hero mode made you lose 2 full hearts every time you fell off of anything.
God,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was a good use of it. I don't know what Nintendo particularly has against eyes. I feel like eyes are a big theme with boss fights. And did eyes hurt them somehow?
Or do they have an eye phobia? A phobia of eyes.
Yeah.
I wonder what that's called. You know it's out there.
There's probably an eye phobia. Yeah.
Ocular
phobia. Yeah, something. Yeah.
TM
something
trademark.
Patent pending. I wonder what misfortune befell the large Gyorg to where it has 4 duplication pads fused to its back.
Yeah, that does seem a little odd. Also, it just has incredible Wolverine-esque regeneration powers to regenerate its 8 eyes every time they blow up. It just like dives out for a minute and then comes back with all 8 of its eyes back. So that's kind of cool.
I think it's got like a belly full of eyes and it can just kind of interchange them.
Like shark teeth?
Oh, yeah. But like instead of growing back the teeth fast, it just made eyeballs.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, fair enough. Why not?
It's as good a theory as anything that I can come up with. So, yeah.
Maybe it steals the eyeballs from all the little green guys that it spawns. Ooh, it just like digests them and turns them into eyeballs.
There you go.
Gross.
Eyeballs all the way down. I think it's hysterical that these guys explode. Like, why do they explode?
Everything explodes, Lyndon.
Well, you know, like maybe they're like zeppelins and they're filled with like a gas of some sort to stay aloft.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
hydrogen. Yeah.
The hydrogen manta rays, of course.
Oh, there you go. Why not? I
Head cannon.
think it tracks.
Yay. But no, I mean, honestly, I think this is one of the most original boss fights in the whole Zelda series.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's some boss fights that you go into, and I like that kind of nostalgic, like, oh, hey, I fought Goma several times, or an iteration.
Moldorm, yeah.
As long as it's not Goma from Twilight Princess.
I mean, I didn't hate Goma. It just wasn't the best
Armagoma.
boss fight. I did like the little eyeball who pops out at the end and just tries to run away from you.
That was pretty funny.
But so,
Hey, eyeballs again.
Eyeballs, man. Eyeballs did something to Nintendo.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I agree, Lyndon. I think the originality of the mechanics as well as the design of the boss itself is really cool. This boss feels very Wind Waker-y to me, mostly in the art design. I really like it. Like if I'm looking at the picture of the Gyorg pair right now, and it's got a lot of the little swirlies on it, and it's very colorful, bright primary colors, very Wind Waker-y to me.
Yep, totally agree. Do we have anything else we want to say about the Palace of Winds before we move out of the dungeon map?
There are a lot of skulls in here. Did the Wind Tribe bury people in the Palace of Winds?
So getting kind of dark with the headcanon here, there's not many wind people left. And it kind of makes me wonder whether they're a dying species.
Are they all dead in here? Is this their like tomb mausoleum?
I think it's their tomb, and maybe the floating manta rays kind of took a toll on their people.
Ooh. Fair enough.
I like it.
Me too.
Think you're onto something. All right, y'all, let's get into part 4, which is Bloopy Trails, where we talk about interesting things that diverted our attention this week. Matt, I'm going to let you go first.
I mean, I kind of the same as the last couple of weeks. Just a lot of Kinstone fusion. Did you get the remote bombs?
No.
Yeah, so you
Yes.
can get remote bombs from Bellari, the forest Minish who gave you the bombs in the first place.
Gonna go back and see him again.
You have to Kinstone fuse with the forest Minish Elder, and then that will allow Bellari to give you remote bombs, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
They're not super useful.
No,
but it's
you
fun.
can just detonate them off to the side. So that's kind of neat, I guess.
Okay.
I got the light arrows.
They would have
That's
made
kinda neat,
made my boss fight much easier with the Dark Nut with my chosen plan.
Yeah, no kidding.
If I would have done that,
Yes.
but I kept the original bombs just because I didn't see a huge use for them until
The
I got
remote
here.
bombs would have helped you quite a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh well. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably leave it there. It's just lots of kinstoning.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Mike?
So I did do a thing this week that I've been trying to do for a while.
What was the thing?
My thing was I tingled.
No,
I tingled. So I finished the fusions with all the Tingle bros who aren't even necessarily related or on the same page about what they're doing.
And what do you get?
You get a magic boomerang.
Cool. And how is it?
Useless.
Okay.
No, I will. So I will say that I did in fact use it twice in this temple to great effect.
because you can kill the anti-fairies with them, and they turn into regular fairies.
100%.
Okay.
So you can do that with anti-fairies. And then there's several puzzles that you can solve different ways with like the turning on switches. And if you angle the boomerang right, because you can control it in flight is the magic. If you throw this boomerang and angle it around different obstacles, you can beat some of these switches a lot easier than the way that the game has a traditional path.
Gotcha.
Tears of the Kingdom did.
I haven't Tears of the Kingdom myself, but sure.
Just finding a different way to do things than what you're technically supposed to do.
Yeah. Detective.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool. Well, so I still have 2 Tingle Brothers left. I'm gonna do it, and I'm going to go get the magic boomerang, mostly just because I don't like the idea of beating the game with that empty item slot just hanging around.
You can just buy the regular boomerang.
Yeah.
No, I want the better one.
So the if you buy the regular one, this one replaces it. I did do another thing that kind of ended up being a not full thing. I thought that I finished that stinking Goron quest this week.
I need one more.
Gosh dang it. So I thought that after you did the 4.
Is there more after the 4?
6.
Oh, no.
Yes. So no, I finished the 4 this week and I was like, finally, I wonder what I get. And then there's 2 more spaces. And I'm not going back to all these dumb claw-mitt caverns again to try and find stones that want to talk to me. I don't care about their kinstones. Whatever item you get's not worth it to me. Bye.
It's probably a piece of heart.
no, it's a bottle.
Oh,
It's a bottle? It's your 4th bottle?
You
Still not worth.
Oh.
I don't need it. I've never even used a fairy in this game, and I have 3 fairies. sitting in
Also,
my inventory.
fairies only give you 4 hearts in this game.
Yeah, but so I am really bad about timing my heals.
Buy the Lon Lon Ranch milk. It's better.
Yeah.
I have plenty of rupees.
It's 100 rupees. So there you go.
Hell yeah. But no, I am really bad about timing heals. So I do love the auto heal version where it says, okay, hey, you died. Here's another 4 hearts. And so that's kind of why I like to have fairies versus hearts.
I just heal myself whenever it starts beeping at me because it annoys the shit out of me.
Well, I'm deaf, so that's okay.
Well, that's fair.
I'm trying to think about my Blue Bee Trail experience for this week. I really didn't do much. It was just a lot of kinstones, right? None of them rewarding me with anything too
Outside of rupees.
terribly major. Yeah.
I've stopped killing the golden creatures because they just give you a ton of rupees and I don't need rupees anymore. And they always F me up. So I just like kind of.
yeah, they're
avoid
hyper
them.
aggressive.
They're
for
hyper
sure.
aggressive, but I don't want to leave that for the poor people of Hyrule. So I go and I defeat the golden creature for them.
Well, that's
I apparently
very lawful good of you, Mike.
So I apparently unlocked as all things are.
I'm
with
chaotic
Detective.
good. Wow, I'm crazy. And good.
Okay. He is crazy. I've known him a long time.
Definitely crazy.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. So I apparently unlocked an upgrade to the chance game in Castletown,
Hey, I did that too.
and I haven't gone to see what the upgrade is.
It's not worth it. So instead of having 2 treasure chests where you have to pick between the 50-50 chance of getting rupees, there's now 3 treasure chests, and they do triple your rupees, but now you have less chance of getting it. And he still tells me that gambling's bad, don't do it, which, man.
This guy's the worst store owner of all time.
I'm not going to get ahead. He's not my Bloopy Trail guy, but thank you for warning against the evils of gambling. Because, man, he's just there for the common man.
Yeah.
He's trying to keep you from your gambling addiction, but it's not a great business model.
Yeah. Very lawful good of you, Mike.
Shit.
I also unlocked a new red potion at Maple, the witch.
Okay.
Which I assume is inversely, which is weird because normally the blue potion is the best potion. I guess the red potion is better somehow.
Did you have to fuse with her?
No, you fuse with somebody else, and it like a Minish somewhere, and it was like, yeah,
okay,
it was cool. I'm gonna go buy her potion because I have lots of rupees and an empty bottle at the moment. So.
All right.
I wish I was as rich in person as I am in Zelda's. Man.
Dude, you're just constantly flush with cash.
I can afford my mortgage, my children, my wife.
With cash.
Lots of milk.
So much milk.
Yeah.
And dude, kids go through so much milk.
Do they really?
Oh, so Matt, you'll experience this at some point. I know Lyndon's on board.
Oh, yeah.
But these kids go through milk like it is water. I mean,
do they go through milk as fast as you go through whiskey?
More so.
Wow.
Yeah. No.
That's
so
impressive.
My kids usually have on average 3 Paw Patrol cups of milk a day. And my milk budget has gone up 200% in the last year.
You got to watch that milk budget. If you don't keep an eye on it, it will balloon.
It's rough, dude. I'm going into debt off milk.
You'll be on the street soon.
Maybe just go buy a dairy cow there, and then eventually that'll even out, right?
I need to pull another link and have a dairy cow at my house that just like
in a hole somewhere.
Yeah.
It's in the basement.
My basement cave for milk. I will not confirm or deny if I have that.
And then you go down and you play an ocarina song for it every once in a while. It's just like, tons of milk. Yeah.
Every time I go over to Mike's house, he's like, hey, you want to visit the whole cow? I'm like,
no,
sure.
I don't think so.
PETA was not concerned about this podcast until this episode.
For the record, there is no whole cow. None of us own cows.
Yet, PETA.
Yet.
God.
So bad.
I wish there was a whole cow. That would be
That would be kind of funny.
that'd be my Bloopy Trail.
Can we not call it whole cow?
Cave cow.
There you go. That's so much better.
It's whole cow until the game gives me a better name.
It's whole milk from the whole cow.
Hey.
God.
Signing off. Detective Maker. Peace out. Why do people still listen to us?
We don't know.
People like these episodes the most. Perversely.
Thank you for your pity.
No, yeah, I honestly, this was not a big Bloopy Trail week for me. At this point, I'm still like, I'll fuse kinstones with people if I just happen across them, but I'm sort of done with going out of my way just trying to find all the possibilities as far as that's concerned,
Yeah.
because the rewards are just kind of not worth it anymore. And we're moving into the end game, right? So the amount to which any of these things are going to benefit me at all is pretty low at this point.
So quick throw into that, because you're right. We are in the end game. If you finish this temple, before you go try and fuse your last element, you need to go back to your sensei there in Castletown, because I made the mistake, not trying to get ahead, Lyndon, but I went straight to try and fuse, and you are thrown into the final temple, and you cannot leave, as far as I have found, to go follow up with the masters.
Cool. So I need to go get the rest of my sword skills done.
So don't try to go to the elemental sanctuary if you still have more things to do.
And I am not what I would say well educated on this game, but I went immediately to Hyrule Castle, fused the 4th element, and you are thrown into the final dungeon with no option so far to leave. And so I'm missing the last. I only have 2 left. It's the one from your sensei. Why am I missing his name? Swiftblade. Yeah, with his possession. But if you wait, you can fuse with Swiftblade after you get the Rock's Cape. And then my last one is to go get Ghostblade. but you can't do that if you go directly to the temple.
Okay. Well, that's going to be my first order of business, and I really appreciate you calling that out because that sounds like something that would have tripped me up and I would have been pissed about it.
Y'all also saved me from missing the light arrows because otherwise I would have totally missed the light arrows as well. So that's the only reason I'm still going out of my way to fuse kinstones and stuff is because this game has a lot of missable things, which is kind of unusual for Zelda games. Normally you can get stuff, you can backtrack, but there are multiple items that you just totally can miss. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to part 5, which is Z targeting, where we lock on to fascinating characters or enemies that we happen across. I'll start up first here. And I'm just going to go with King Gustafsson Hyrule.
Hey, I was going to do that.
Okay, sorry.
Mostly because we named him.
Yeah, he's got a full name now. So yeah, we've got a proud lineage. We've got this guy. We've got King Daltus Brohanson Hyrule, right?
Daltus Brohanson Hyrule, yeah.
Exactly.
My kids are so lucky that I didn't play some of these games before I had them because I would have named them straight up Johansson Hyrule, Gustafsson Hyrule, Maker, and
Bosphoramos.
Balin Bosphoramos Maker.
That would have been incredible.
High school age Balin just has a moment where he sits across a table from you, sighs really deeply, and just goes, "Why?"
Yeah.
he's filling out his name on a Scantron test. And he's like, "I hate you, father."
God, you just sounded like Badgie.
Oh my God, you did. Hello, father. I will burn your heart in a fire.
God, we got to catch up on Lower Decks, man. We got a
I
whole
know.
other season.
I got time. Let's
Dude,
do it.
Lower Decks is so good. Oh my God.
I love Lower. If you haven't seen Lower Decks, you need to go watch it.
Now we're back on our Star Trek
Top
podcast.
tier Star Trek. It's hysterical, but it's such good Star Trek.
I will say, even as like not the biggest Star Trek guy, the
It's so funny.
Matt and Lyndon are what I would call Trekkies.
Yes.
I am
for
a
sure.
Trek light,
Fair.
but I still love Lower Decks.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to catch up on that. My Z targeting is not Badgie.
It's Gustav Gustafsson Hyrule.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. No, I always appreciate the benevolent spirit of a monarch coming back to help us in a hard time. Very decent of him. We could have used a tip off from him that his descendant was currently possessed by the main bad guy of the game.
Yeah, I feel like someone should tell you that.
Did
Yeah.
not everyone already know that?
No, they just think the king's acting real weird.
Yeah.
I mean, well, so did you guys know it though?
Oh yeah, I mean
okay.
us as the
Yeah.
player know
But I'm
it,
talking
but Link
like
doesn't know it.
narratively, like
Oh, okay. Because I was like, man, I thought you guys were a little higher tier intelligence.
No, Link doesn't know that at this
yeah,
point in
just
time.
give us a heads up, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no, yeah, that would have been nice because I feel like he's kind of omnipotent about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, hey, here's a gold kinstone. Now go F off.
Find the source of the flow.
Yep.
So, do you need a prostate exam? What's the problem here? Oh my! Boom!
What?
We're in our 30s.
Oh God. What if?
That was a good one.
that was good, Matt.
I just want to say, if I am in a position to, like, when I die, if I am in a position to leave my family any pretty decent amount of money, it will be in my will that I want to be buried in a crypt like this.
Seriously?
Yeah. Just for giggles, it's fun.
That's how you get haunted locales.
No, but he wants to be a haunted locale.
Yeah, dude.
I want to be able to talk to my descendants from a haunted tomb. But just quick aside, I have already planned my funeral.
Oh,
and
yeah?
It's in my will, whether they can actually enact it or not, that I get a Viking funeral.
Yeah.
Where they put me on a
Awesome.
It can be a ship of any build or a canoe. I want you guys to send me off in some kind of pond.
What about the pond behind the house?
It needs to be a better pond than that.
I'm okay with that pond actually, because then you can have my remains.
Gross.
But I want Lyndon to train with a bow for at least a couple months.
to hit that shot.
Yes,
With the
flaming arrow.
Lyndon, I will say, if my son is of a proper age by the time this occurs,
That's fine.
Well, probably actually my daughter. My daughter's going to be the better one.
That's fair.
Sorry, I love you, my son.
Yes.
But I want
Mavis has the disposition.
She does. She 100%. She's going to fire a flaming arrow into my crypt boat
Yep.
and sink me, and my benevolent ghost will provide wisdom.
right, fair
I
enough.
definitely would hate to become the Edmure Tully at your funeral.
I just missed 4 times.
Yeah, that'd be unfortunate.
No, my since we're talking about it, my will is I want to be cremated and my ashes thrown over a cliff in Scotland while everyone drinks an entire bottle of Lagavulin between whoever is there. They
Can
just
I
pass
please
it
come
around.
to that?
Oh, like
Yeah.
so it's not like every person there. has
No,
to drink
there's
an entire
one. There's
bottle.
one
Gotcha.
bottle of
Okay,
Lagavulin
gotcha.
that
I'm
is
drinking
passed,
the bottle.
that is passed around to all of the people who are there, tossing handfuls of my ashes over a cliff.
I'm gonna have a crypt. It's gonna be spooky. I'm gonna leave it in my will that there has to be a series of musical notes inscribed on the crypt.
Oh.
That's gonna keep people real confused for a while. I'm also gonna install speakers, and they're just gonna keep the Redead sounds on loop. So anytime anyone's in there, all they're gonna hear is like yeah.
Donor, if I go to your crypt, so in the off chance that I outlive you, if I go to your crypt and take out my sousaphone and play the notes on your tomb, do I get a magical item?
Definitely.
Well, I want people to think that they might get a magical item. Whether or not they do is insignificant. But
It's for me though, right?
it's about the yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, this was a really fun little aside that we just had.
And now the entire internet knows it's public. It's on record for posterity's sake.
There
No
you
one
go.
can say that they were ignorant now. Matt, here you shortchanged me a little bit.
I did not shortchange you.
Please, I will compensate you appropriately at some future.
Pour
point.
yourself some. It's my turn to talk anyway. It's Z targeting. Z targeting. My Z targeting this week is the ghost. His name is Spookter, I think.
Yeah.
The ghost in the in the graveyard who says that he's just there hanging out and he's like, "You're a human. Why are you here? This is for dead people." And you're just like, "Oh yeah, well, fair enough." And then he says, "Yeah, my brother lives in town. He's kind of a prankster." And just like, I don't know, that whole little dynamic is really funny to me. Just 2 ghosts, both with beanie hats, and one of them is like, "Yeah, my brother's a real fuck up. He just lives in town, scaring people. Is what it is."
So how do they know what each other is doing? Like, do they have a ghost network or
I would
cell
assume
phones?
that they have some kind of ghost telepathy that's going on.
When we die, we're totally doing that, guys.
Totally
Yeah.
ghost telepathy.
Have
yes.
y'all figured out how to move his brother?
No,
Yeah,
haven't
no.
yet.
So you 100%. I did that. You have to go fuse a second kinstone
Of course.
with Spookter because he's one of the 2 kinstoners that I just found out about.
Kinstoner.
He looks like a kinstoner.
He does.
Yeah.
And so you go smoke a little bit of the leaf of old Toby with Spookter, and you give him a kinstone, and he says,
Your
"Bro,
love of the halfling's
Leaf
leaf
has clearly
clouded your mind.
Slowed your mind. Lyndon.
Slowed your mind?
Slowed your mind.
oh,
Okay, so Lord of the Rings trivia. I was watching a Helm's Deep video on YouTube the other day.
As one does.
And yeah, it was a person analyzing why that battle is so fun. And
'Cause it's awesome.
Yeah, because it's great. That's the video. That's the whole video. Yeah. Anyway, so he was showing the very end Gandalf's charge with the Rohirrim, and it had subtitles on. And so when Éomer charges with the Rohirrim, I always thought what he was saying was to the keep.
To the king.
Yeah,
he says to the king.
Okay, yeah, I just learned that.
Oh, yeah. No, to the king.
Yeah, it's way cooler that way.
So while we're already on Lord of the Rings, do y'all find it possible to watch Aragorn kick the helmet without saying, "Oh, he broke his foot"?
Literally not possible.
No, yeah.
Impossible. Every time, even though my fiance knows it, every time he broke his foot and she goes, "I know."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's become such a
You
thing.
have to say it.
So Bryn tries to beat me to it now.
Oh, that's
when
fun.
we watch Lord of the Rings, she's like, "I know he broke his foot."
It's part of the experience. You can't let it pass unsaid.
I'm happy to be that guy for my viewing partners.
We observe a very strict no talking policy during those movies, except for that one scene.
Well, and you also have to allow for the 15-minute preamble explaining the lineage of elves, men, differences between Numenorian men and low men, and there's just like a whole thing that has to happen.
Well,
before
and
you watch
especially when
these.
Matt pauses the movie and says, "Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, the Silmarillion?"
Now let me give you detailed history and examples on all of the gods and demigods within Middle-earth and why the Balrog is so important.
We're about to start a Fellowship of the Ring, and Matt walks around the group handing out laminated packets. Right?
Here's my PowerPoint.
Now, if you reference section 1, subsection A5, you'll see
Elrond's lineage and why Arwen is technically her distant cousin.
Thank you for listening.
This has been Sacred Realms, a Lord of the Rings retrospective podcast.
Mike, you still have Z targeting, man. We're still on Z targeting.
I forgot. Oh gosh. My Z targeting is going to be Sky Grandpa that you save from the ghost.
Yeah, good
man,
one, good
that
one.
guy has so much life left in him. He's spry as all
Dude,
get
he's
out.
doing yoga up there.
I know. I'm like, dude, I want to get on your workout routine. Like anti-possession, you're the dude.
I think he's notable for being, I think, the only character in all of Zelda that gives you light arrows that
Is not
Princess
Zelda.
Yeah. Like, good on you, buddy. Like, I guess you just had these laying around. Like,
Yeah.
every other game, we get these at the very end, and they're necessary for beating actual Ganon. But I guess you just had them in, like, your closet or whatnot.
And the fact that it is missable kind of adds to like the coolness of discovering and doing that thing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the cool things about Zelda, especially specifically this Zelda, that you have the option to do things that may or may not play out for the rest of the game.
I just want to say, if we ever play another Zelda game where she spends the entire thing frozen in stone, I'm a riot. I'm done with it. Let my Zelda do cool things. Let her give me the light arrows, please. When you actually get the light arrows in this game from Ghost Grandpa, I don't know if you noticed, but the artwork for the bow actually changes in your inventory screen, and it becomes a 2D version of what the bow looks like in Wind Waker, of all things.
I did notice that. So that's a pretty cool throw in.
Yeah, really appreciated it. It's kind of a pain, like drawing an arrow and just kind of chilling there while it charges and then trying to line up your shot is not the most intuitive thing in the world. It's nice to have, whatever. It one hits moblins, which is great.
Sweet.
Yeah, cool. Great Z targeting pick. Let's go ahead and get into part 6, which is our final thoughts, in which we let Matt, him of the throat clearing noises.
Look, man, it's that time of year.
If you only knew how many of those I edit out of every episode.
Well, I've offered to help you with the editing and you just refuse, so you can't complain about it anymore.
One day I will teach you my secrets.
Before we do whiskey bit, you
that
need,
day is coming to a close quickly.
you need to hand out Dayquil with the whiskey for whiskey bit.
That's a
Dangerous
combination. It's like, hey guys, you know what would be great with your whiskey bit? Some benzos. Like, what?
Oh, it's just me then.
We're really getting into a West Plano house party, man.
Whiskey and benzos? Mike, can you confirm, is that a West Plano house party?
More like White Claw and benzos right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I was going for that. Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Part 6, which is our final thoughts, in which we let Matt wrap up this section of the game in as succinct a way as he can think to do.
It's only when Mike is on that this happens.
You're welcome.
What can he say except
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We
Feel free to center yourself for a moment.
Woosah.
We enter this section of game coming off of another great dungeon where we get to meet Gustav Gustafsson Hyrule, who helps us explore a new section of the map. We enter the spooky crypts of Hyrule and dive deep into the resting places of the sacred dead, get some gold kinstones, and then head on up to the sky where we explore on the clouds, much like a Mario game, and get a lot more gold kinstones and do a lot more kinstone fusing, making our way up to the tippy top of the clouds to a really fantastic dungeon that has a lot to offer, including a great item and some amazing aesthetics and sense of place and great puzzles, topping it all off with a really unique and phenomenal boss fight that is fun and challenging and hectic, and getting our final of the 4 elements as we approach the end game of this spectacular, bite-sized little Zelda game.
Well done, as always, Matt. That brings us to the end of the Sacred Realms Rundown. We will, of course, be back next week for another installment of the Sacred Realms Rundown, covering the finale of this game. We got Josh on for that one.
Yay!
Yeah, gonna be a fun time. Mike, It's been fun. I don't know if you can tell the listener at home that this has been a fun time for us, but it has been fun.
It's always fun. I appreciate you guys having me on again. I'm sorry for all the asides. I'm not sorry.
No, you're not sorry.
No.
We're still sub 2 hours right now, so I love the asides. I think they do nothing but make good pod. So yeah,
I'm here for the pod.
As always. Until you're not, I know you're planning on bailing on us for Spirit Tracks, so
Yeah.
Quitter.
I'm sending you a copy just to guilt you into doing it anyway.
And I'm probably going to do it because I love you. But if you weren't like emotionally abusing me for that, I probably wouldn't do it.
Okay, well that's fair. That's fair. I'm all about that content, and ends justify the means, etc. Okay, so we've got one more regular week of Minish Cap, and then as weird as this is to say, we've got the rank and recap right after, which you're going to be on, Mike. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to be deciding what game comes up next, what we're going to play next. A lot of options on the table. Mike, what are you hoping for?
Well, I don't know what the secret option is, but secret sounds fun.
You will be involved with the secret option.
Sweet. So maybe secret option, maybe not Spirit Tracks.
Okay, cool.
So yes.
Okay, fun. Regardless, gonna be fun. We'll catch up with you pretty soon. Have you played ahead from this point at all? Like, I know you said you got into the final dungeon. Did you kind of like go through it, or?
I'm about halfway through the final dungeon. I wanted to wait until closer to time to beat it, just so it's fresher in my memory.
Yeah. Good call. Hard to fault your logic. Matt, are you ready to get out of here for the week?
Let's do it.
All righty. Until next time, gents. Here.
Until next time.
I was going to propose one last cheers, but you're both dry, so never mind.
I got drips.
You got drips?
Cheers.
Cheers.
May your arrows and hearts do things. We love you.
May your hearts be full, and may your arrows never miss.
And may you have all the rupees.
You got it right on the first time, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. If you enjoyed today's show and you'd like a little extra Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod and become a patron. If you've got no rupees, it's not a problem. 5-star Apple Podcast reviews are a great free way to support us. More reviews means that more people see our show. That makes us very happy Hylians. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @Sacred Realms Pod for updates on the podcast and for behind-the-scenes action. Sacred Realms will be back next Wednesday with our thoughts on the Minish Cap, Chapter 6. We'd love for you to play along with us and to share your thoughts on our social channels. The Minish Cap can be played in a variety of places, most of them not accessible anymore. An original Game Boy Advance cartridge, various virtual console offerings, the the 3DS Ambassador program. What you're probably playing it on is your Nintendo Switch, which is the same thing that Matt, Mike, and I are doing via the online subscription service. Of course, you can also emulate the game via a variety of services, but we ask that you not do that unless you legally own the copy of the game that you're emulating. But in the meantime, may your hearts be full, may your arrows never miss. We'll catch y'all next time. Sacred Realms is an independent, listener-supported podcast, which is produced, edited, and mixed by me, Lyndon Willoughby. Business operations are handled by Matt Willoughby. Our music is generously provided by Darknuck and is available to listen to on Spotify. Finally, we'd like to thank Nintendo for continuing to create such exceptional and innovative experiences.